Welcome to the Fire and Earth podcast with your hosts, Jason Mefford and Kathy Gruber. Fire and Earth, giving you the keys to unlock your limitless potential.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. I'm your co-host, Kathy Gruber.
And I'm Jason Mefford. And today we're going to talk about another question.
Woo!
Woo, 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 woo. Right. So this question was, where do you go for good ideas? Woo.
Ooh.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
End of episode.
Hey, thanks everybody. I'm Kathy.
Thanks everybody. All right. We'll see you later. No, it's an interesting question, right? Because I think most everybody, we want good ideas, we want answers, but where do you actually go, right? And so for me, it's a little bit, I would say it's a little, as I've gotten older, this has probably changed, right? So when I was younger, if I wanted good ideas or I wanted answers, I'd probably go and ask somebody, right? Like, hey, Kathy, give me the answer, right? As I've gotten older, I have started to go inside myself more for the answer.
Yep.
And I have started to look at kind of, what's the right word? Tangential kinds of things. So I learned this, kind of from like an artist perspective, right? Is if you're trying to get inspiration, look at others, maybe even outside of your area of expertise or outside of your industry. And so this shows up a lot of times with like in business, right? So somebody came up with the idea for Airbnb and Uber, right?
Yep.
Those kinds of industries. And those were ideas that came from somewhere else, right? And I don't know, chicken and egg, which one came first or whatever. But when the first person kind of came up with the idea for something like Airbnb, then other people could go, now hold it just a minute. Could we use that same kind of concept and take out the taxi companies just like Airbnb is taking out the hotel companies?
Yep.
Oh yeah, that would probably work, right? So a lot of times you can get good ideas by looking at kind of innovative or new things that people are doing, but in a completely different industry, and figure out how you can apply it to what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, McDonald's got their idea from Gerald Ford, right? Ray Kroc looked at this assembly line concept. Well, the McDonald brothers looked at this assembly line concept, and that's how they put their hamburgers together. So, it's exactly right. Looking to other things. It's interesting that you say when you're younger, you would have asked people, now you go inside. So isn't the best idea machine ever the shower?
Yes, it is.
I've had
the shower, or even taking like time off. You're sitting on the beach, or you're doing something else, and your mind is not actively trying to find the answer. That's when the answer comes.
Yeah, because the brain doesn't like open loops. So I find that if I pose the question, like I have I'm doing a workshop at Hypno Thoughts Live this year, and I had pitched a couple different ideas, and Scott picked using myth, imagery, and something else, how to be your own hypnotic dungeon master. So it's all about D&D. Because I thought, how fun would that be, right? And
when you've been playing a lot of D&D the last little while.
No, and then he gave me a 2-hour slot, and I went, oh shit, oh no, what the fuck am I going to talk about for 2 hours? I thought an hour talk, I can make it fun, I'll do some like guided stuff. Now it's suddenly 2 hours, and I'm going, oh. And so I haven't done it yet, and it's like 2 weeks away, but it's percolating, right? It's working on it up there. And occasionally I'll get this hit of something where I go, oh, right. And I'll write like a blurb down, or I'll do one PowerPoint slide. My brain in the background is working on it, because that's what brains do. So when I have a client that has a problem to solve, or has something that they're really just like noshing on that they can't figure out, I'll say, look, ask the question, and then go to bed and see what you come up with in the morning. Because if you pose a question, your brain has to answer it. It's gonna finish that loop. So I've started doing that. Like I'll pose a question, then I'll either meditate or I'll go take a shower or I'll go walk. When I'm doing massages, I have had the most incredible ideas pop in during massages because there's that stillness, right? There's just that two people just being. And I'm doing this sort of repetitive motion because I'm massaging somebody, and I have come up with some of my most brilliant ideas while massaging people. They just pop in.
Yeah,
It's
because you're quieting your mind. I mean, so much of the time we try to overanalyze and try to think our way through things, but most of the time the answers don't come from thinking your way through, even though that's what we're taught in school.
Yeah,
right? We're taught critical thinking and everything else, because a lot of times the best answers, that's not where they come from.
Right.
They're actually coming from our subconscious, or they're coming through us from the universe, right? And the only way to do that is to quiet yourself down.
Yep.
And I think it's interesting because I know like from musician standpoint too, you know, because again, a lot of them are trying to get the inspiration, they're trying to get an answer, they're trying to figure out how to do the next song or what this new lick is or whatever else. And a lot of times it's them quieting themselves or getting away, and maybe sometimes listening to other kinds of music that will then inspire them. And you can see that, especially, you know, in the last 10 to 20 years, there's a lot of sampling, like in hip hop and rap. There's a lot of sampling off of, you know, older music that is in a completely different genre. And it's that same thing, you know, where again, they're kind of getting the inspiration from other places.
Yeah.
I just read Rick Rubin's book that he came out with, and I can't remember the name of it now, but Rick, big music producer, and he was talking about kind of the whole creative process, and how a lot of times like that, when an artist is stuck in the studio, he'll have them do something that's just out of the ordinary, or something that is not in their normal process, and all of a sudden, boom, it kind of clicks, right? And so it's that same thing, like you said, asking yourself a question, going and taking a shower, right? Or asking yourself a question and then take time off.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know how many times I've heard from business owners, like their next big idea came while they were on vacation with the kids at the beach.
I was just gonna say that. Yeah.
You know, and it's like they're not in work mode, but holy shit, they just had $1 million idea sitting there talking to their partner while their kids are playing on the beach or at the amusement park.
Yep. Well, and it's about the decentrating, right? I mean, like we get so set on concentrating, and you know, I have so many friends who are magicians too, but musicians, right? Where you're sitting at the keyboard and you're like, oh, I just can't. Walk away. Go make dinner. Go do something else. You know, give your brain. It's going to keep working on it. But if you're sitting there at the computer with writer's block or with music block, if there's note block, whatever we call it, step out of that. Get into a different environment. I remember coming home from the castle one night. This was years ago, and I was trying to stay awake. Put on NPR, and it was this sort of collaboration and interviews of about 30 different experts talking about the brain and where do ideas come from. What part? I mean, because there's no physical stuff up here. There's no idea, which is a physical thing, right? So like, where's creativity and ideas? And they had interviewed brain scientists and psychiatrists and philosophers and like Buddhist monks and like meditation teachers. I wish I could find it again. It was so fascinating because it's true. It's like, what is an idea and where does it come from? We can get down that rabbit hole, but it was.
Yeah, because it's not like there's a part of your brain that's labeled as idea, innovation, part of your brain, right?
Right, and you don't cut up in the brain and see a pile of ideas. So it's like, where does that come from? It's just so fascinating. But that's what this conversation reminded me of is, where do they come from? And they seem to come when we're not expecting them, right? When we're not trying, which has been kind of the point of this, of go take a shower, go get out of your environment, and your brain will work it out. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. No, it is. And like you said, the as I've gotten older, I've also, and again, it's still hard for me to remember all the time, and I don't, but I'm getting to the point where I'm better at not trying to force something.
Yep.
Right, because so much of the time we try to force it and force it and force it, and if I work harder on it and if I think harder about it, then I'll get the answer, but it usually doesn't come that way.
Yep.
Like you said, you've got to kind of go away, take a break, go inside, right? Quiet your mind if you do meditation or whatever practice you might do, because like you said, you get a lot of your ideas when you're massaging somebody. Why? Because you're quieting your brain, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a form of meditation, if you will, because you've quieted the monkey brain. And now all of a sudden, right, the door's open and things can come through.
Yeah. I had one client, he's unfortunately passed on. He was one of the most brilliant businessmen. I think he was California's top realtor years in a row. I mean, like the guy he had it together. And he would not talk during his massage. He would say, hello. He'd get on the table, and for 2 hours, he would not say a word. So for 2 hours, I was just quiet. And I swear it was his brain somehow communicating with my brain, because I had the most brilliant ideas when I would work on him. And I think there was some like collective unconscious like soup in the room of me tapping into his business success. And like, I'd be halfway through a massage, just kind of go, oh. It got to the point where I would keep a note. I always have a notepad in the room anyway, in case I have to remind like afterwards to give them an article or da-da-da, but I would like take my drink of tea and I'd write down what I had just thought, because I had the most brilliant ideas when I was with this guy, saying nothing. So who knows what was happening in our brains that I was like tapping into his business.
Well, which is funny too, because there's reason why he wasn't talking those 2 hours too. He was doing something else.
Yeah.
He was tapping in as well. And so, yeah, it's not a surprise if he's kind of tapping in and pulling down some of that stuff, and you're in the room, that you would experience or be kind of, picked up in that whole collective consciousness and energy space as well.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So surround yourself with people who, are in different fields, but know more, and just sometimes being around them just sparks that kind of stuff. So yeah. Yay.
Good
Fun
stuff.
Conversation. Yeah. Cool.
So that's where you can get
good ideas.
From.
Go into my shower or go massage someone.
Or go to the beach or whatever.
I don't think it's specific to my shower. I think it's anybody's shower. But yeah, go take a shower. The water conducts the energy from the universe, and it pours down upon us, and we soak it through the top of our head. Who says that's not right? Every scientist ever.
Well, every scientist, but just because scientists don't say it doesn't mean there's not something to it.
That's what I'm saying. Cool. Well, anyway, that's my final word. I'm Kathy Gruber. I could be reached at kathygruber.com.
And I'm Jason Mefford. I can be reached at jasonmefford.com. So have a shower, sit at the beach, have an idea, pop in, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. See ya.